Welcome back to another episode of The Road Chose Me. My name's Dan Grech, and on today's episode, I'm going to teach you how to make a cutlery and tool organizer just like the one I finished making. Those people who know me know that I love to eat, which also means, therefore, that I learned how to cook. And when I'm on the road, cooking 3 meals a day is just a staple of my trips. I do it to save money, I do it because I like to cook, and I do it because I'm out remote, so I need to be able to cook my own meals. And if I'm gonna do that, I want all of my things to be super handy. I don't wanna have to open a Tupperware, put the lid somewhere, move the Tupperware out of the way, all that just to get out a knife or a fork or something. No, I want it to be super convenient, right at arm's reach, so that's why I built this thing. If you want to see how to make your own, stick around. I'll get into all the details right now. So when I drove from Alaska to Argentina, I had a fold-down tailgate table on my Wrangler. And here's a photo of the kitchen board that I made for that. And you can see it's almost identical to this thing. And when I was thinking about this vehicle, I actually planned to make one out of fabric using pockets. And some of you might know Jeff Sherb, who's pretty famous in the Jeep community for making all kinds of accessories, things out of fiberglass, brackets, fabric, and a lot of his designs have gone into production now, overlanding things like how to mount jerry cans on Wranglers, kitchens, things like that. And anyway, here's a photo of one that Jeff made recently, and that really inspired me, and I thought about making one the same way. And then when it came to actually making it, I realized I'm not so good with a sewing machine. I don't really have any fabric here. I'd have to go and buy some. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized the one that I made in my last Jeep was absolutely perfect. So that's what I did again this time. And it's really basic. What I used at the back here is just a piece of melamine. You could use anything, really thin plywood, a piece of perspex, a piece of aluminium. Basically, I used this because it's what Dad had lying around. And last time, actually, my friend Stu had a piece of melamine lying around. That's why I used it. The next thing you want to do is figure out where you're going to mount it. Obviously on a tailgate table, that's a really great place. I've got mine on the back of my Dometic fridge here. And the reason I did that is because this is going to be my kitchen area for now. And later on, when my kitchen arrives, the way that the fridge mounts and where the cutting board and everything is going to be, this will still be a really handy spot. The fridge is going to move on some slides and a few other tricky things, but I think this will still really be good. And you might notice I haven't mounted anything at the bottom of mine. And that's because of the way that the fridge will be integrated into that kitchen setup. I think everything below about halfway is going to be covered, but I haven't seen it yet, so I'm not 100% sure. But anyway, find somewhere to mount yours and then really just cut your piece of material to size. So I just took the measurements, went and cut it. I even used a paint tin to get these nice round corners and then just used some sandpaper and some files to make it nice and neat. As well as that, you really only need a little roll of elastic band. And I just went to a sewing supply store and said, you know, elastic, the kind that you would have in your waistband of your pants. I think it was $2 for a few meters of it. You need some pop rivets and some washers, a drill to drill some holes, and that really is about it. That's all you need to do to make this thing. So here we go, let's get into it. Let's go and make this. I'll show you how it works from the very beginning to the very end. Now that I've got the material cut to shape, it's time to figure out what items I'm going to put on this organizer and exactly where I'm going to put them. And there's no right or wrong way to do this. It's more about your personal preference and what things you use a lot when you're camping and what things maybe are okay to have away in a drawer or whatever. And so I've got a bit of experience from doing this last time, and I remember and I know which things I use a lot. And I also found it really helps to put things on an angle. If you have them vertical, they tend to just fall straight down and fall out of the elastic straps. Whereas when they're on an angle, like a 45 degree, they're a lot less likely to do that. And so I've just been playing around for a while now, a couple of days, slowly figuring out exactly where I want to put everything. This is what I've come up with. Now it's time to actually mark where I'm going to drill holes and where I'm going to put every single item. So again, there's no right or wrong way to do this. I'm just going to mark each side of each item about where I think the holes need to be. And these are probably going to change a little bit after I've stretched the elastic over each of these things. I'll just figure out where does it make the most sense to put them. based on how tight I really want the elastic to be to help stop these things from sliding around. But for now, this is pretty close, I think, to what it needs to be. I might do, and how many elastic straps you do for each item, it's up to you. Last time I did 3 straps on the really big items, like the long knife, and that was probably overkill. 2 probably would have been enough, I think. But because I can and because it looks cool, I might do 3 again this time and just see how it goes. So I've marked out those ones that are on a diagonal. Now I'll mark out the can opener. And I think because the can opener has the big handle here, I think it makes sense to put a strap right up so it'll sit and the handle will actually stop it from sliding down any further. And I'll probably put another one down lower just because. And then same story here for this big spatula. If I put a strap right here underneath the wide part, obviously it's not going to be able to fall down and fall out of the strapping. Same for the tongs, which way around? Probably that way makes them thinner, but that way they maybe fit in a bit easier. Something like that for the tongs. And of course, you've got to have a spork, otherwise you're really not an overlander. And I love eating with a spork. It actually is the only utensil that I ever used in Africa for eating. And so I'm gonna have a spork again because I like them. So there you can see I've loosely marked out where they're all going to be. I'll probably just straighten them up a little bit, make sure they're in straight lines. Then it's time to start drilling the holes. Now that I've got the holes drilled, it's just about time to start attaching the elastic strapping that I've got. And before I do, I'm just going to use the cigarette lighter, and just burn the end of the strap just a little bit, hopefully to stop it fraying, especially when I cut it. I really want to make sure that this isn't going to fray and fall apart. And so to put the strap on here, it's just exactly like you think it is. I want it to sit not quite right on the end of the strap, will just come in a little bit. And I've just got a sharp little stick here and I'm going to poke a hole sort of through the middle of the strap. And that strap is actually much stronger than I thought. That's probably a good thing. And so to attach everything, really all I use is a rivet, just a regular old pop rivet, and a washer. And the idea here is I want the back side of all of this to be as flat as possible. That way it can mount flat against the fridge. It doesn't matter if it's kind of 3-dimensional on the front, because that's where all the utensils and all that stuff are anyway. So I'm actually going to put the rivet through from the back, meaning that the back side will actually be really flat and the front side will be kind of the bulky side of the rivet. Then I put my elastic strapping over that rivet, have to try and get it through that hole that I just made in it. And then finally, I'm going to put the washer over that so that when the rivet squashes down, it actually pulls the washer down, and that's what will hold the elastic strapping onto the board. See if I can get it through this hole here. So there we go. That is rivet, elastic strap, and then washer looking from the front. And now if I put the rivet gun on there and I crush this rivet down, there we can see on the back side, it's about as flush as it could possibly get. And on the front side, my rivet has crushed the washer and crushed that onto the elastic strapping. That's exactly what I want, because now the elastic strapping can't lift up. And to do the next attachment point, I need to actually check that the item I'm going to put there is going to fit and how much slack do I want. Because obviously I could punch a hole in the elastic like that and then it would be really slack and it's probably not actually going to hold it. Or if I stretch the elastic and then punch a hole, now it's super snug tight, I can hardly even get it out. So there's kind of a happy medium to find here where you want to stretch the elastic, but obviously you don't want to stretch it, you know, a crazy amount. So find some sort of, there it is, it's snug, but it's not wildly tight. And then so that's where, when I find my little hole punch, that's where I'm going to punch a hole in the elastic that lines up with the hole I've already got in the board. I want it to sit snug about there. I can push that through. Yep, the holes are lining up. push that through as much as I can. I have to actually make that hole quite big to get the rivet through. And actually, I don't even need the lighter to sit there anymore because I already know where the hole's going to be now. And so exactly the same story as the other one now. I put a rivet through from the back, I get it through the elastic strapping, and then I put a washer on the front before I'll crush that rivet down. And so I've just finished that second rivet, which means now if I test, my cigarette lighter fits in there and it's nice and snug. It would fall out, you know, repeatedly whacking on it or whatever, but I think that's a really good fit. And that's kind of what I'm aiming for as I do each and every item. So that was the cigarette lighter. The next thing to come along is the bottle opener. And again, I'm just gonna sit it in place and then figure out how tightly to stretch the elastic. Again, you can see not very tight right now. Somewhere about there, it's starting to actually hold it. And I'm just thinking about which end of this thing is fatter, which end is more likely to hold. If I put it there, it definitely holds on that edge. But somewhere about there, I think, is going to work. So just a matter of now, I'll continue this run and do all of this strap before I'll cut this elastic, burn the end off, and then start again on a whole new run. All right, now 5 or 10 minutes later, you can see I've finished the first run of the elastic. And so it just goes across all those utensils once. And the first one took a while to sort of poke through the elastic, but once you get the hang of it, it all starts to go pretty quickly. And you can see already, even just with one piece of elastic, these things are held on there pretty well. They don't want to fall off. So it's already working. That being said, for the longer items, especially the big knife, I'm going to do a second and even a third wrap. And I will on the little knife as well. I kind of remember from my old board, I like to push on here on the little holster as I'm sliding the knife out the top. And I think it's just going to help to have more elastic there to kind of share that load. So what I need to do now is I'll cut the elastic off here because this is the end of this run. I'll melt the end of it, and then I basically just repeat and do another run across this way and then another run down there. And more or less now, it's just rinse and repeat. I just keep doing the same thing all the way along. And there we have it. I've finished laying out and attaching all of the stretchy elastic. And so you can see this is my cutlery board layout. And as you can tell, most of what I put on here is actually cutlery. This is the stuff that I find I use the most. It's not to say it's everything that I bring with me. I do have other spatulas, I do have some butter knives, even chopsticks, but I just decided these are the things that I wanted most accessible and most handy for me. And so I'm really happy with how it came out. I freestyled a little bit. My lines aren't perfectly straight here. I shuffled things left to right, just fractionally, trying partly to avoid the mounting screws that this is actually going to screw on where I'm going to mount it. And you can see on the back side too, it's clean enough. The rivets stay pretty flat. I did just file them down a fraction. Some of them were a little bit sharp, trying to make it as thin as I can. And the black strip here, this is actually Velcro, because where I'm going to stick it, this will Velcro onto something to give it a little bit more strength, stop the whole board from kind of flapping around. It does have 4 mounting screws, and I can do those up nice and tight with big washers, so I'm really not worried about it going anywhere. So yeah, really happy with how it turned out. And you can see this is how it's firmly, everything is stuck on there. So even when I like really, I mean, I don't think I'm going to go over worse corrugations than that, and nothing's moving at all. So I know this is definitely going to be up to the task, and these things are going to stay put. Final step, mount it where it needs to live. So there it is. I'm quite pleased with the results. I think this is going to work just as well as my last one did, which is absolutely flawlessly, and definitely you'll be seeing this in a lot of my photo and video updates because I'm going to be spending so much time in the kitchen area. So if this video has been helpful, please do hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and if you've got any questions too about how I did this, let me know, fire away down below. I'm really happy to reply to comments and help you to build your own so you can optimize your own kitchen setup and have more enjoyment when you're cooking meals out of your vehicle. So until next time, I need to say a big thanks to my supporters over on Patreon. they're helping me bring these videos to life. They're getting behind the scenes updates. They're getting more information kind of than I'm putting out on YouTube. So thanks very much to all of those people. If you're interested in supporting me, you can head over there. $5 a month is the lowest support tier, and you'll get tons of access and content to things that normal folks on the internet don't get. So there's a link in the description if you want to check that out. Thanks again for watching. Stay safe out there, and maybe I'll bump into you on the road.